everybody, welcome. This is Kevin Richards from RockTheStageNYC.com. Today's vocal video tip is sort of a part 2 or a redux of my falsetto versus head voice video, which I've gotten a lot of feedback on, some positive, some negative, some people still arguing with me that head voice and falsetto are exactly the same thing. So I'm going to give a few more demonstrations, make it a little bit more clear about why falsetto and head voice cannot be the same thing. First, let's start with the basics. Vocal cord approximation, or where the vocal cords approximate where they need to come together to make a sound. Vocal cord approximation. Now, your vocal cords are in essence no bigger than your thumbnail. That's it. That's as big as they are. So, and the vocal cords come together in a sort of V shape like this, across your throat like that. They come across like this. Now, vocal cord approximation is what makes head voice. Falsetto is the vocal cords come together but only slightly, really just the edges of the vocal cords are touching. So you've got all this air, all these gappy places for the air to escape through, which gives it that sort of breathy timbre. Now, an example of that sort of breathy timbre would be, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. That's a very Marilyn Monroe, sounds like you're running out of breath sound. It has a nice quality to it. You can use that effectively in many spots. But for head voice, that's not really effective. It doesn't really work. We would need a closed approximation where the vocal cords come together in a sort of more closed fashion. Now, a little background on what the vocal cords are actually designed for. Speech is actually third on its list of things to do. Number 1 is it's an air pressure valve. It serves as an air valve for the lungs. That's basically what you're doing, is the vocal cords are slamming together, closing off the lungs from the rest of from the outside air. Now, why do the vocal cords do that? Why do they need to do that? They do that because what they do is that's how you gain leverage. To push something, to pull something, to lift something up. You know, we pick something, you pick up a box and you think it's empty, and you pick it up when it was full of stuff, and you go, oh my God, that's really heavy. Well, that oh my God is the vocal cords coming together. And because what they're trying to do is, you notice that you can't push or pick up anything with a sort of very flexible, try to pick up something really heavy when you're drunk, and you see what I mean. You can't push something with a really rigid body. You need a stiff body to push something. Now, how do we do that? We always, that's the vocal cords slamming shut to trap the air into your chest, to keep the chest rigid. So you've got a stiff upper body for the leverage to push, pull, and lift things. Now, second on its list of things to do is to close off the lungs when we eat and drink. Now, your mom just wasn't being a pain in the ass when she said, don't talk with your mouth full. Aside from it just being bad table manners and being rude, it's actually very ideal for not choking. Now, if you've ever sort of, you're choking, or you've swallowed something while you were trying to breathe in or talk, and you go, oh, excuse me, sorry, that went down the wrong way. What happened was you were trying to breathe in or speak while you were eating or drinking, and the vocal cords got confused. They didn't know what you wanted to do. They didn't know whether do I want to speak or do I want to slam shut to keep the food and the drink out. And they're kind of opening to try to speak or to breathe in. And some of the fluid or some of the food gets down into that area. That's why we choke. So mom wasn't just being a pain in the ass. She was actually trying to save your life. So the third on this list of things to do is to vibrate for speech. Now, this is what we get to falsetto versus head voice. Now, falsetto, the vocal cords come together, but sort of only on the edges. And we get that sort of breathy timbre, right? Now, the vocal cord approximation for head voice, the vocal cords come together more. We get more of that sound. And we build up pressure behind the vocal cords because they're closed and they're tense. And we get what's called vocal compression, where air is trying to push their way through the vocal cords. And we get that sound. What we do is we use a very slight version of that for head voice. This is why falsetto and head voice cannot be the same thing, because one is an open approximation, one's a very closed approximation with lots of air behind it. And a falsetto lets a lot of air through, whereas closed head voice keeps a lot of the air trapped behind it, which gives it that full sound. Now, Falsetto cannot be a register because you can apply it to any note in your range. You can apply falsetto to a high note, and you can apply falsetto to a low note. Now, if falsetto was a register, it would recur within a specific range, specific area in your vocal range. If you can apply it to any note in your range, chest range or head range, it can't be a register. It has to be a tonality. It's the same thing with vocal fry. Vocal fry is more associated with chest voice because that's where most people do it. They'll do it way down here, way down there. But you can also do it way up here. You can also add. Britney Spears does it a lot. She adds a vocal fry to her voice. It makes it sound sobby, crying almost. Now, also, again, if you can apply vocal fry to a high note and a bottom note, it's not a register. It's a approximation of the vocal cords. Now, an example of falsetto versus head voice would be, we'll use Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star again. Here's a falsetto version of it. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Pretty, but not very full sounding. Now, if we get the closed chord approximation, we build up that air pressure behind it, we get this sort of sound. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Now you can hear that sort of pressure behind the chords building up, and it gives a lot more emotion to the voice, a lot more sort of a crying, a sort of prolonged sobbing effect. Now that's how head voice and falsetto cannot be the same thing. Now, the reason why there has been a lot of confusion is that for a long time in classical sort of methodology or pedagogy, before we really understood a lot of things about vocal cord approximation, falsetto and head voice were interchangeable. They used the term chest voice and head voice instead of chest resonance and head resonance. So falsetto and head voice were interchangeable. And basically what they were doing is they were applying falsetto sounds to the head register, especially in men, because men in classical pedagogy are not really taught to approximate the vocal cords. And especially tenors and baritones are not usually taught how to approximate the vocal cords to go up into head voice. Contraltos or male sopranos are taught how to get a sort of vocal cord adduction, where the vocal cords come together, are open at the top and closed at the bottom. Tenors and baritones are not usually taught that. They're taught more mixed voice sort of approximation. And if they do something in head voice, it's a very resonant, it's almost what they call reinforced falsetto, which is a very forceful falsetto with a lot of chest resonance to it. But it's not a true vocal cord approximation, a vocal head voice adduction approximation. So I hope that clears up the sort of head voice versus falsetto debate, a bit clearer than my other video. Until next time, this is Kevin Richards from RockTheStageNYC.com. See ya.